to This is Diana. This is your host, Diana. And today I have a different kind of a broadcast that I'm going to bring to you today. There's no special guest except you and I. I hope that wherever you are, you're sitting, relaxing, and ready for some information that's taken me some time to compile. And what I mean by that is a lot of personal experience, a lot of adversity, a lot of research, and a lot of clients that I've worked with, and me, myself, have been the client at a certain time. The particular topic that I want to discuss with you today is about spiritual awakening, and specifically how difficulties in life, what I call calamities, adversities, struggles, disasters, can lead to a psychic opening or a spiritual awakening. It so happens that millions and millions and millions of people in the world from the beginning of time have experienced this and still do and will experience this. And I wanted to start a little bit by explaining how this began and how I intended to research this originally. The whole topic of spiritual awakening was written in a manuscript. I wrote it and rewrote it and rewrote it and rewrote it, and, well, it's sitting on my hard drive. I'm sure a lot of writers can relate to this, or artists who are recording music. Sometimes something isn't perfect enough to submit, at least in the artist or the creator's mind. But I realized that this information needed to be shared, and there was no room for perfection because, well, this is an imperfect ride. We're living human beings. There's nothing perfect, at least as we're growing and developing as humans. So I said, let me share this through blogs, through broadcasts, through storytelling, and these stories I'm going to tell you today, specifically the story is a real story that happened to me, that occurred to me, and there are a lot of characters that took place in this process. It's going to be very brief, however. It's going to tell you just how this spiritual awakening occurred to me personally. And as time goes on, we'll continue to expound on it, and I would definitely love anyone who has experienced their own spiritual awakening, their own spiritual crises, their own psychic awakening to call, email, contact me, and let me know what yours is, and share it with all of us, because we really do need to know that this is not an isolated incident, and there is a difference between this and, for example, mental illness. And with that said, I'm going to give you a disclaimer. Please make sure that you, no matter what's going on, you get yourself checked out by a professional, a physician or a therapist. Make sure anything somatic, physiological is cleared, and emotional as well, and it's not induced by medication or psychedelic drug. This specifically that I'm talking about is something that occurs when life itself, different circumstances, reach a certain point where it's almost like an alarm bell or a prompt. And for me, this happened. And I want to share it, and I want to thank you for sitting down with me. And before I go on, just remember, in order to contact me, just visit thisisdiana.com and also respond to this blog Talk Radio. So let's begin. Now, I don't mean to scare you, because like I said, this happens to so many people. But sit back, enjoy what I'm about to tell you. Some time ago, I would say back in 1999, I went through a series of very, very, very difficult experiences. And it all culminated with the death of my mother, who died suddenly, what I call suddenly, in a matter of weeks, at the age of 49, of a very, very rare cancer called leptomeningeal disease. Many people still to this day do not know. There's no cure for this. It's deadly. And she was only 49 years old. I was 29. I decided to move to San Francisco. I said, I'm going to start a new life. I left my multiple jobs. I was a counselor, an advisor, and an entrepreneur. I moved across 3,000 miles to San Francisco. I decided I'm going to be a flower child without the drugs. But the adversities didn't end over there. In fact, things got worse, because I was in the middle of grief, and I was involved in taking care of someone who had their own illnesses, and I didn't have the boundaries. At that moment, I was so vulnerable. I didn't know how to take care of myself, and I gave all my resources to that person and ended up losing a lot. My health, money, self-esteem, sense of self. I mean, it was completely something I take responsibility for, but in a completely unhealthy situation, every way you look at it. I was completely isolated. Didn't know anybody over there. I had some friends that I've met and since are very close to me, but at that moment, when I first landed there, I had no one. So I continued to struggle, looking for work, looking for money, looking for ways to, use my skills, my advanced degrees to make a living. But it was during the time of 9/11 and post 9/11 where getting a job was extremely difficult for the most educated, for the least educated. The only programs available in San Francisco at that time were for people that really were immigrants or very, very, social servicely involved. So that didn't involve me, for example. So I was hungry a lot. There wasn't a lot of food. I was facing eviction, and I was really close to being in the street with my cat and my mere belongings and my plants. And working multiple jobs and looking for some type of respite. I couldn't find it. Got an eviction notice. I was grieving. I got tons and tons of letters saying, you're not qualified, you're overqualified, you're disqualified, you're anything you can imagine. But the final thing was I just couldn't get a job. And I couldn't get a job that would afford the rent. So I was in my studio. I walked in from a millionth interview. I was so exhausted. I walked into what I call my beautiful apartment in Nob Hill. I cherished it so much. It was my first apartment on my very own, although it was in my 20s, or in early 30s, excuse me. It seems like my 20s, it seems like so long ago. I walked into my apartment. I turned off all the lights. I was so tired. Turned off the phone. Turned off everything. And I laid down on my little makeshift bed. I didn't have a real bed. I had a pad with a metal. And I fell into the deepest sleep I have ever felt. I didn't drink anything, no alcohol, I didn't eat, I didn't take any pills. I was in so much pain. And yet I went into this place, into this nothingness. I was completely gone. And I can't tell you how long it was, because honestly, I don't remember. But it's sometime during that darkness and that blackness, which I call the dark night of my soul, something odd began to happen to me. I felt something top of my head, a warm light, like a sunlight kind of warmth. But it was evening. It was definitely after sunset. There was no way it could have been, sunlight. Besides, I didn't get direct sunlight in my apartment. So this warmth continued, and it was light. And I said, well, what is this? Is it a headlights outside? I don't know. I was so disoriented. Again, I was in between states. I had fallen into this deep sleep. And this warm light was coming from the ceiling. Okay, so now I'm thinking I've gone crazy. I've snapped. I didn't know what a dark night of the soul. I know what it is now, but I didn't know what it was then. I said, oh my God, there's a hole in the ceiling. What is this? But there wasn't. The light was beyond bright. The light was beautiful. It was alive. It was conscious. I felt as if it was communicating with me. I know that sounds crazy because that's exactly how I felt. I was completely enveloped in this light. It was all around me. It was beautiful. It was alive. It was real. It was conscious. I felt it through every fiber of my being. I don't know how long it lasted, but it felt as if a loved one, the person you love and trust the most in your life, had put their forehead against yours and said, without words, "It's all right. It's all right." And the warmth just went through my soul, my body, my being. And I shook and I began to cry. I began to cry harder, stronger, longer than I ever have in my life. Longer than when I first heard my mother die. Longer than any time between and after. It was the deepest cry I've ever experienced. It was so beyond limit. I don't even know how I survived. I thought I was going to die from the crying. But I didn't die. I continued wailing. The tears just didn't end. I was so... It felt good. I felt alive again. I felt like, wow, I'm here. I do have a reason. I don't know what it is. You know, when something so dramatic happens to you, for me, it was my mother's death, along with the loss of my identity as an academic, as a student, as a friend, as a girlfriend, as a family member. All those things were lost to me. As a productive human being, I felt completely unproductive. All those things, I felt I had no identity. But at that moment, when I felt that light, when I felt that communication, I felt the most alive I have ever felt to that point. And here I am, at this moment, again, 3 years ago, thinking, well, what do I do now? I mean, what does this mean? Is my life going to begin now? I mean, am I going to get a job? I did not. Things were not going to be smooth sailing, and I can tell you that for many of people that I've counseled, advised, consulted with, this is not a linear up to the rainbow, to the mountains kind of journey. It's up and down and tricky. There are valleys, there are leaps and falls, and I had plenty to come, and this was over 11 years ago. Throughout this time, something really strange began to happen. Something that I considered a curse, a punishment, was my oversensitivity. Oversensitive to everything. When I was a child and there was a kid that was sick or in pain, there I was crying. I didn't know why. Consoling that kid. When I saw an animal in pain on TV or in real life, I ended up in the emergency room with fevers from the pain that I felt from that poor creature not being loved, being tortured, being abused, which is why I love animals so much, and I try to rescue them and plants as much as I can. Because that oversensitivity was what I learned was an empath. I was an empath. Millions of people are empaths. They're oversensitive, hypersensitive, whatever you want to call them, but they are special, and it is a gift. But I didn't know that. I didn't know that, but I started realizing after that experience, I started seeing that this was my ability not only to be empathic on other people's experience, which I use for my counseling and my advising. I was able to put myself in other people's place, psychologically, behaviorally, but I was able to do it emotionally and spiritually, which is where the empath ability came in, along with flashes of other types of psychic ability, which I, to this point and to this day, I'm still exploring it, as many psychics are, as many people that are intuitives and light workers are. Light workers are people like myself that have dedicated their life in one way or the other to heal myself and heal others in every little which way we can. A plant that I rescued the other day, somebody abandoned. My two beautiful animals who I adore. I am honored to be their caretaker and their guardian, and they are my guardians in many ways as well. So a light worker tries to heal in any way they can. So an empath and light working, all of a sudden that became a gift. And for everyone, for you, for someone else, it might be a different skill, it might be a different ability, it might be a different psychic ability. It's a clumsy process. It can be really messy. Fortunately, because I had a lot of experience doing research and a lot of experience ever since I was a child, just learning and being curious and I did have a strong academic background, I was able to take these experiences and learn and research on the internet, books. I drank them. I ate them up as much as I could. I found a particular book called Spiritual Emergency, When Personal Transformation Becomes a Crisis. This is on my blog. The author is there. The link is there. I highly suggest you look at it. It was so helpful in putting some of the pieces together that didn't make any sense, and traditional therapy, grief counseling just can't answer, at least by most people. There are other therapists and healers, psychologists that are transpersonal that do understand the spiritual process. They're still a little difficult to find. There are also intuitives and psychics that do help. This is part of my task. This is part of what I do as well. I try to guide people through their process and share it with the world in a healing way, in a private, confidential way, with their permission, of course. So the causes of the spiritual awakening could be this disaster, could be something. It doesn't matter what your age is, what stage in your life you're in, your family composition, single, married, children. It doesn't matter if you're religious, an atheist, doesn't care. The awakening can happen to anyone. And there are patterns, there are things that make it very specific, that make it very clear that this is something very different that you'll ever experience in your life. That this isn't just a three-dimensional world. Something completely different happens to your consciousness. You realize that you're not just flesh and blood and nerves and hormones. You're spirit. Whether or not there's a life after death, which I do believe there is, it doesn't matter, because you feel you are here for a reason. And there are many things you start to notice. These prompts, these awakening, this wake-up call also happens externally. You're able to see things that you didn't see before, notice patterns you didn't notice before. Don't ignore them. You're not crazy. You might feel crazy, but you're not. These things are real. Get together with people and start sharing some of these experiences. You're going to see that you're going to notice things like 1111. Anybody that I tell 1111, like they know exactly what I'm talking about. Because they know that something is odd. How could it be you see this number all the time? And it's not just 1111. It's 444, 333, 1212, a whole bunch of different combinations. And there's a lot of different meanings to each number, and it could be very individual to you. The 1111 itself is a wake-up, a universal wake-up call, and it could take different meanings as we go on, but it's just one of the things. But I do want to share with you that no matter what the trigger is, whether it was childbirth or an accident or emotional, hardship or financial, a loss of friends, a rape, a physical assault, whatever it is, there are signs to look out for. There are going to be changes in your life to look out for. So you know that you are in a process. You're in a journey. And it's good to know what some of those signs are. And I'm going to go through some of them here. So I'm going to ask you to take a breath and sit down and just listen to some of these signs, because you're going to see that some of them are very familiar. This is not an all-inclusive list. I urge you, become hungry for knowledge. Search online, go to the library, go to the bookstore, go to blogs. See what resonates with you, what rings true. The one thing I will tell you is this is for the highest and the greatest good. This is not meant to hurt you or be painful. This is meant for you to know that you're here with other human beings sharing in something collective. So if anybody tells you anything that hurts you, is demeaning, is frightening, please contact someone else immediately. Contact me and know that there is hope. There's nothing out there ready to get you. Okay? You are in control. You are spirit, and you have the power. So let's move on to the signs. Some of the spiritual signs that people begin to experience are with their basic five senses. It could be something subtle at first, like assuming you have your five senses, and I hope you do, but it doesn't matter. Whatever senses are active in you. You can start seeing flashes of light, not attributed to any physiological or biological or outside, like something wrong with your light bulb or something, a floater. This is something different, and you know it's different. You know there's something there. There's flashes or movement or shadows or light or sprinkles, sometimes shimmer. And sometimes it happens in the corner of your eye, sometimes in your direct vision, but mostly in your peripheral vision. It happens at certain times of that day or night, or when you're, emotionally in a certain mood. So it's very important to start logging and noting when these things occur, because there is a pattern here. There are multiple patterns to pay attention to. So this can also be something you start hearing. Oftentimes, people start hearing bells. They start hearing gongs. They start hearing things like, music, but not normal music. They start hearing things that sound like wind chimes, but there are no wind chimes. You'll know the difference. You will know when there's something around you and that this sound is not something, again, it's a mental illness like a schizophrenia. This is something that you have taken the time to clear yourself from. And you will know that this is something completely different. You will sense it. The same thing, you might smell things you've never smelled before. Something that maybe your great-grandmother, your grandmother or a relative or something you grew up with childhood smelled, flowers, a cigar, anything like that. It doesn't have to be all paranormal and scary. But it will be a smell that is not attributed to your current environment. And these, your senses, you'll see this, you'll feel it. Just make a note of it. There is a reason why you're experiencing these things. You're going to also notice pretty significant changes in your sleep pattern, particularly if you've already had a normal sleep pattern. I, for example, never have. I've always been an empath. I've always been emotionally affected by things. But if you've had a normal, relatively normal sleep schedule, anywhere between 7 and 9 hours a night, you may notice that all of a sudden you're sleeping a lot more, a lot less, or in phases of 3 or 4 hours. And it's uncontrollable. You need to get this rest. It is completely necessary, or you need to do something. You get this energy surge, and you need to do something with your energy. Don't ignore it. Again, clear yourself physically. Make sure there's nothing wrong physically. And then, sure enough, you may find there's nothing wrong. It is the process. A leap in your chemistry, in your physiology, in your physics is occurring. There's a frequency leap that many people discuss in metaphysics books, or even physicians, or, if they're into, holistic medicine, you'll be able to see this. You'll know that this, again, is experienced by many people. You may also notice that, for example, in your body, you might feel strange, like vibrations or tingling, like if your cell phone is on vibrating next to you or something, and different parts of your body. It's very, very specific and significant, and it's not your bed or it's not anything else. And again, this whole system, your nervous, physiological, emotional, and endocrine system, adjusting to the new awakened self. You're seeing things in a different light. The world is just not the same anymore. Once your eyes are open, you can try to close them, but you can't. You can't stop from seeing. Speaking of sleep, and speaking of beds, you are going to notice that your dreams are so much more lucid, so much more vivid, so much more real. In fact, you're going to be able to control your movements. You're going to be able to, travel, fly. Now, a lot of people fly in their dreams, but, sometimes you can't control it, or sometimes you do, sometimes you can't. But these lucid dreams are very different. You'll get information that you haven't gotten from an external source. Sure, our mind remembers things that we may have been exposed to for a microsecond, like 20 years ago. So we got to take that into account. But some of these things are indisputably from a source outside of the, explainable. So soak it in, enjoy it. These dreams are real. You might encounter other beings, other people that are journeying as well. They're wonderful. And you are in control. You can always come back. It's not dangerous. Your silver cord is not going to detach. Very rarely does anything happen to these dreams. And there is literature out there that tells you how to handle should something occur. So no worries. You can always email me or contact me or somebody that has a specialty in this area for information. So again, take that deep breath and no worries. And, a step higher of a lucid dream is out-of-body experience. This is much more real, if you will. I mean, lucid dreams are just as real, but it's pretty much soul travel. And this is something for another show. Again, just look up OBE. A lot of people think they've experienced it, and they confuse it with lucid dreaming. But OBE really is your astral self. You're you within yourself. It's kind of detaching from your body. It happens all the time when we sleep. The thing is, we don't always remember it. So it's no big deal until we have a night terror or something that happens that we realize that, ooh, I don't feel normal. I didn't have a normal sleep. I had a nightmare. And that wasn't a normal nightmare. It was a strange nightmare. So please take note that an out-of-body experience is completely different from everything. You're going to see things that can be verified later. You're going to see friends or something you can see later that really occurred. Again, take note. Don't be afraid. Do the research. Get the support. Okay? Now, we're talking about other things that you're going to experience on the day-to-day basis during your waking hours. You know, there's some people, not all, that do have such awakening, such a shock into this awakening process that they literally are electrical. They start electromagnetic. They start affecting everything around them. Their computer always breaks. They don't care what watches anymore. Their cell phones are always going on the fritz. And, TVs are turning off. All kinds of things that can't be explained. It's you. It's nothing scary. It's just a matter of the energies being calibrated and being balanced. And for this, there is help. There are ways of dealing with this, including crystals, which are resonate energy. People think, oh, crystals is this hocus pocus. No, it isn't. Any computer, anything you have uses crystals. Crystals have an incredible amount of energy that we have just begun to harness. So consider it next time you see a quartz crystal. Get one, make it your own, and use it to balance yourself because, it really does work, and thank goodness it's affordable. So that's one thing you're going to notice if you're super high electrical. You're going to be, a lot of times, something else that's going to happen is that you're going to change your personality. It's going to take a change. Nothing drastic or psychologically damaging. It's going to be that you're going to be less tolerant of violence. You're not going to like to see movies of, blood and spilling guts and, I'm not saying zombie movies aren't fun. There really are a lot of fun. I'm not talking about something like that. But you're going to have less tolerance for seeing things that are in the news. Any person or animal being abused, you will not be able to tolerate because it's not, your soul cannot comprehend this. Now you're in a healing, loving mode, light mode, and it is incomparable or, not in synchronous with darkness and violence and malice. There is room to balance light and darkness within us, but this is not the time to do it. So again, support is crucial. Okay? In addition to this, you're going to feel things physiologically. Oh, you're going to feel like sometimes allergies that you didn't have before that have nothing to do with the environment sometimes, or, skin outbreaks, acne, things that are really not present, rashes, again, not explainable by normal things. Or maybe you didn't have allergies to something, but now you are hypersensitive to them because they have something genetically modified in them, or there's something artificial that you can't tolerate. You're going to have a tendency to want more natural things, which is very difficult if you're a city-dwelling person, like many of us are. But thank goodness there are organic foods out there. There are, farms, that you can, in the city, vegetables and fruit stands that do have organic fruits, and lots of markets that we can choose from. I know things are expensive, but there are things that at least a little bit at a time for you to integrate yourself to more foods that can sustain your new and alive system. Your system is different now. It can't tolerate all those toxins we've tolerated our whole lives, including flu shots. I can't tell people not to have a flu shot because it saves some people, but some people that have had spiritual awakenings cannot, absolutely not tolerate them. You want to prevent the flu, be extra careful, wash your hands, avoid people with the flu as much as you can, cover yourself. Hygiene is going to be very important, and also avoiding it as much as possible. And, so there are many things that you can do to avoid some of this. And many people are going to want to, because of all of this, be more light workers and want to heal, want to help. But remember, you have to start with yourself. So before you go out rescuing, the people starving, in this country or that one, or, rebuilding a new park here and there, unless you have the resources, go at it, absolutely. Make sure you start rebuilding the park within yourself, or feeding that hungry child that never got healed from a trauma that occurred years ago. Work on yourself. It doesn't have to be through traditional therapy. There are many other alternative, healthy, soul retrieval kind of, therapies with professionals that can help you find truth and health. Because if you are not whole, if you're not taking care of your body physically, exercising, breathing, yoga, water, sleep, loving, hugging loved ones, socializing in a healthy way, there's no one you can really help, or you're going to be helping someone at substandard level. And I don't think anybody really wants that, especially when they're having this awakening. You really don't want that. You want to be the highest self you can get. And this is the one thing and the one sign that I really want to discuss, because it's a little difficult for people to understand, and it's awfully mistaken with depression or some type of mental illness. And a lot, not there, seeing things isn't confused with mental illnesses that aren't there, but oftentimes there is a very, very almost desperate need to be isolated, to be a hermit, to be alone. And this is actually very, very natural. It is crucial to find time and a place. I don't care how you do it. I don't care how many kids, how many cats, how many co-workers. It's crucial. You go to the bathroom, you go to a closet, you go into a phone booth. I don't know if they have phone booths anymore. I think they do somewhere. And give yourself some precious, much-needed time, contemplation, for breathing, for drinking water, for grounding, for centering, for reading crucial information about the transformation that you're undergoing. It is so important, because if you don't do these things, then you can start to develop a sense of there is something wrong, and you could start developing things that are legitimate psychological issues. You can get depressed because you're not dealing with the process in the way that it should be dealt with, which is a healthy support system, doing the research, doing the work. No, people think I'm crazy, my family doesn't understand me. A lot of times when you go through this, you're going to find resistance from people. People are not going to get it unless they've experienced it. Don't get angry with them. You can't get mad at somebody if they don't have a certain information. Just take care of you. There are people that do understand. So be patient with them. Try to explain it that you're going through a phase and you need time to adjust to it. There will be a time where you'll be able to be integrated in regular life. When I say regular life, I mean this new beginning for you. And you're going to be able to discern, make very, very intelligent, intuitive decisions on who to associate, who not to associate, what to do, what not to do. And you'll always be taken care of by the universe. You'll never be without. That doesn't mean I'm going to have challenges. Like I told you at the beginning of this broadcast, I have seen doozies after my awakening. Things that I'm like, is this really happening? Losing my apartment, or getting ill, or going through a physical, violent confrontation with someone. Yes, it has occurred. But now I have the tools to get through it with flying colors, because I'm here sharing this with you. And I am loved, and I do love. And this is what I want for you as well. So, I will leave you with this ton of information. But this is also available in a blog. This show will be archived, and there are resources available. And there are ways. Remember, research, do all you can. There are so many things available out there, magazines, blogs, support groups. As long as the support groups don't turn into complaining fests, you're good. The support group is to lift and uplift each other. That's what you're going to seek. And you're going to go from group to group until you feel resonance. Find a spiritual healing professional. There are many. It doesn't have to be me. I do have experience. I don't know everything about everyone. I do know a lot about my experience, people that have experienced many similar things, and I will be more than happy to speak to you about that. But there are many professionals with different specialties, with sleeping disorders, out-of-body experiences, with seeing apparitions, with becoming other kind of psychics like mediums, which is very disconcerting for a lot of people, or all of a sudden getting in psychic messages so you don't know what to do with them. There is help out there. No need to fret. As I said earlier, the most important one is to take care of yourself, your spirit, your body, your emotions. I can't tell you how important that is. It's not selfish. Again, selfish is when you take care of yourself and not take care of anything else, and for no other reason, for just for the sake of it. You're taking yourself seriously and you're loving yourself in order to express that love a millionfold with what's around you, with your environment, with people, with friends, with animals, with strangers, with this planet that we're so fortunate to be in, and try to do things to reestablish its health. So many people are damaging this planet, and we need every single human to do the best we can and do simple steps, whatever it is. Recycle that can, whatever it is you need to do. Do your part. Believe me, it makes a difference. Say thank you to someone. Smile to an old lady in the supermarket that probably doesn't have anybody, even if she's grouchy. I bet you anything she'll appreciate it at some point in her day or night. Take care of yourself. Take care of others. Do not rush this process. It's not linear. It's not numerical. It's not logical. It is what it is. It is spiritual, something we are still trying to understand. Don't rush into any practice of yoga, like Kundalini or some spiritual sect. People sometimes, they want to just, I had a little taste, let me go all the way, let me go. That could be very dangerous. Don't rush, because your process is going to be very different than this other person over there, or this other person over there, or this other person over there. It is uniquely yours. Give yourself the time and the space to take care of yourself very carefully, because there's only one you. So with that said, I hope that whatever your journey is, whether it's light working or a path that you are already on, I ask you and I thank you so much for joining me today. And remember, we're going to have many more episodes on different topics. It's not scary. It's beautiful. And I thank you so much again. I'm going to leave you with something a little up-tempo. It's going to be a little bit more fun to leave with. And remember, contact me anytime. This is Diana. Have a little fun as we say goodbye.
Firing up the grill, having a picnic, going to a game, or the beach? Stop by Acme for juicier Lancaster brand meats, fresher cut fruits and vegetables, tastier desserts from our bakery, and all your snack needs. It's the 3-day sale now through June 19th. Get Breyers or Ben & Jerry's ice cream 16 to 48 ounces. Buy one, get one free. Lancaster brand USDA choice boneless New York strip or bone-in ribeye, $7.99 a pound, 3 pounds or more. And live lobster, $7.99 a pound, limit 6. At Acme, it's getting better every day.
Ah, the sweet sound of a squeaky clean engine. It's like music to my ears. Oh, and that's a dirty engine. It's what happens when you use ordinary fuels that leave behind dirty deposits. But new BP gasoline with Invigorate helps clean your engine. With continual use, it can give you more miles per tank. Oh, much better. New BP gasoline with Invigorate. Our best fuel ever. Versus minimum detergent gas, average restored 3 to 5 miles per tank based on fleet testing. Requires continuous use based on what you drive and how you drive.